Good afternoon, viewers. Thank you for tuning in to our ongoing conversation about balancing our body, mind, spirit, and community. I'm John, and today our guest is Pastor Michael Kennedy. Welcome to Balanced. Viewers, again to our balanced episodes. We are providing these every week for you well, all of us, to help us pursue having balanced lives. This is a core value of ours at Samaritan. So in the last couple of weeks, we've talked about having good balance in our body and in our mind. So today's episode is focusing on balance in our spirit. And our guest today is Pastor Michael Kennedy, pastor of North River Church up in Parrish. So Pastor Michael, thank you for doing this with us today.
Absolutely glad to be here with you, John, and thankful for Samaritan and the ministry there, and glad to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. Not that there's really bad ones, but this is going to be, I hope, really helpful to all of us about this important part of our lives. This is the day before Thanksgiving. So tomorrow uh, hopefully we're going to have good balance in our bodies with what we put in our bodies. Uh, you're going to be traveling for Thanksgiving?
Yeah,
What's the plans there?
so our family will head up the week of Thanksgiving to from South Georgia, so heading up to see my parents there, and we'll spend a few days with them at their lake house and try to get away from just the demands of the busyness of the
Hmm.
season, and especially in
Yeah.
ministry life. So excited to get away and eat a little bit of turkey and sleep a
Hmm.
little later than normal, and read some books that I don't normally get to read. So looking forward to it.
And actually, I don't know if this is in your notes and things you want to talk about, but those are actually ways to help our spirits, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Keep in
definitely.
good
So
contact. And
I'll
viewers, we wish you well and happy Thanksgiving over these next couple of days as you get to do the same kind of things that we're talking about. It might be weird and different than what we're used to, but it can be very fulfilling for us.
absolutely.
So let's lead into our topic today, Pastor Michael, the topic of spirit balance. And I think we just want to start sort of basic here for everybody. When we say spiritual life, spiritual aspect to our lives, let's just start with what are we really talking about?
Yeah.
What aspect of our lives are we referring to when we say that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question because those terms can just be thrown out, and you really don't know what someone's talking about. And, sometimes people do that on purpose because they really don't know what they're talking about either.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, so the way I would look at it is just in terms of who we are as people. That I like to think of it as the fact that we're body, soul, and spirit. So those three components that we would look at and say what makes up our physical bodies, what makes up our soul, and then what makes up our spirit as well. And interestingly, when you go in and look at what's recorded in the book of Genesis, you look and realize that the scripture talks about animals having a body and a soul,
Hmm.
and what makes us unique in that is the capacity, the ability for us to have a relationship with God that is not demanded on us, but is actually a part that we have the ability to enter into, choose to or not to.
And that just thinking along those lines helps us understand the value of this, why it's important to pay. If you haven't started, let's start
Yeah.
and figure out how to keep a good balance about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Think about it in terms of kind of a stool that has three legs. If one of the legs is
Mm,
missing, you can't sit on that stool, at least not very long, without
that's
having to
right.
try to do some crazy balancing and figure that out. And so, I think for us as human beings, we need to be well rounded in that, and certainly our spiritual life is a key component of that. So.
Yeah. So when someone comes to North River or just comes to you as a pastor and says, "Hey, I want to start paying more attention to this, or I think things are out of kilter. I need some help in my spiritual life. What are the things that if you want to use that stool analogy, what are the things that make up the legs that keep that stool steady?
Yeah, so I think from a spiritual life perspective, one of the things that try to help people understand and in preaching and teaching and just in daily conversations with people, helping them, whether they are a believer or are not a believer, to understand that they were created by a creator who desires to have a relationship with them. And so that desire within them to find something to relate to worship, to interact with is a deep hunger that
Hmm.
every single human being has, because we've been created by a God who desires to have a relationship with us. And so the first thing I try to do is encourage them and say, hey, that is not weird that you have a desire to have a spiritual relationship with the Lord. Even, you look at some of the surveys in our nation, and they talk about just the reality that people are interested in spirituality just in general. And I think that's the reason why. It's because every single human being has been created with um, you know a God-shaped hole in their hearts that he can only fill, and
Hmm.
yet spend our lives oftentimes seeking to fill that void with things other than the Lord. And so
Hmm.
but I think probably you're kind of keying in on the individual believer, someone
Hmm.
who's already trusted Jesus, and they say,
Sure.
"Man, I really want to grow spiritually. How do I do that?"
Yeah.
And that's a question I get a lot in terms of pastoral ministry
Yeah.
and interacting with people. And so one of the things that I think's been probably the most helpful for me is a quote by Eugene Peterson, who's the translator of the Message Bible.
Hmm.
And one of the things that he talked about, in fact, he's got a book by this title, but it's called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction.
Mm.
And I think that to me sums up what it means to grow spiritually. It's simply walking in obedience to the Lord day by day, minute by minute, and doing that over an extended period of time. And there's a lot of ways that you can flesh that out in terms
Hmm.
of just generally, if you're talking about, man, I want to be financially healthy. You ask someone, okay, how do I do that? And they say, well, you spend less than you make, and you save money, and you invest that money, and 40 years from now you'll be a millionaire. Or you talk to someone about physical health, and you say, man, I want to lose some weight and get healthy. Well, what do I need to do? And it's like, well, you eat less than you burn off, and you exercise consistently, and you do it
Hmm.
day after day after day, and you see the results of that. And I think spiritually it's the exact same thing. It's not sexy to talk about it like that. We live in an instant culture that we just
Right.
pop it in the microwave. How do
Hmm.
I do that spiritually?
Yeah.
And 2 minutes from now have everything I need. And it doesn't work that way.
I think that's really helpful to us to just be challenged that it's more about being consistent and being obedient than the actual to-do list,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because that's the easy thing is, hey, Michael, give me a checklist,
Right.
and I can do that. And read your Bible. It's the things that pastors always talk about, and
Hmm.
I joke about that
Sure.
with our church and just say, this is the thing that you expect a pastor to say. You need to read your Bible more. You need to pray more. This is the checklist, and the
Right.
reality is that, yeah, those things are important, and those things are certainly a means of grace where we connect with the Lord in those avenues. But really, it's the daily walking with Jesus,
Hmm.
and day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, uh, walking in relationship in the same way that we would walk in relationship to someone here on
Hmm.
the earth right now, a
Yeah.
friend, family member, whatever it may be, a spouse. And if we're going to grow in that relationship, we know that that's what it takes, and that's what it looks like. And I think the same thing's true with our relationship with the Lord. And so we grow spiritually as we do that, and as we do that over a long period of time.
So, Pastor, there's like 500 questions going through my head that we could continue talking about. So I'm just going to ask you, sort of put you on the spot. Are you willing to come back and talk to us some more?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Love to be able to do that, and we can tackle those questions one at a time and see how far we get. So.
For example, what you just said prompted a question in my head about patience. But let's not start there.
Yeah, and don't
go there right now. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. So this is really good. Yeah, remind us one more time. What was the name of the book that you referenced by Eugene Peterson?
Yeah, so Eugene Peterson's the author, and the title of the book is A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. Yeah,
I haven't read it, haven't heard of it, so I'm going to have to check that out myself.
Absolutely.
Viewers, this pastor is a good example of a reader, and all leaders really, how important it is to read and keep that as part of your balance in your lives. So thanks for sharing that, Pastor, and taking time out of your schedule to help us today with this subject.
Glad to do it. Yeah, thanks so much, John.
Yes, you're welcome. Viewers, tune in with us next Wednesday, and we're going to be wrapping up the Keys to Balance series, talking with a couple of leaders in our community and talking about community balance. So we'll see you then. Have a good afternoon.